Bethel, creator of the Western webcomic Long John, which you can find at the website longjohncomic.com. I'm also the co-host of the weekly nerdy and geeky discussion podcast, a podcast for all intents and purposes, which you can find at forallintents.net and listen to at any podcasting service you happen to use. And I welcome you to another episode of Con Artists, a podcast where two independent comic creators talk about reading, making, and selling comics. Well, at least we usually do. As indicated by the opening, the concept the show revolves around is about independent creators and their tactics, goals, and efforts to get their comic out there at various comic book events, be they small shows at community centers to large expositions or conventions. But it's a look into what goes on in the minds of people behind the table, and checking in every now and then to see what works and, sadly, what doesn't. With this year's CrockerCon, a pop culture show held at the esteemed Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, and also my favorite show that I exhibit at, we are presented with a unique opportunity. One that I never thought really would present itself for this podcast. Though the options for conversation about how to run a table at a show are rife with topics for conversation, unending and infinite, I would say, not often do we, as exhibitors, think about how a show gets made and how it is run. Though new to the position, we bring back Kyrun Silva of Taurus Comics, not to talk about his experience at this year's CrockerCon as an exhibitor, but as one of the coordinators of the show itself. I hope you enjoy this conversation about marketing and selling a new comic book and running a convention from two con artists doing their best to make a buck. This is the first one we were talked after a CrockerCon.
Is it?
It's special.
I know.
Yeah. And even though technically it's the 9th one, I'm just going to title it Con Artist number 10 because it seems most appropriate.
CrockerCon Artist number 10?
Oh. Ooh. That sounds like ripping off the Crocker, though. And, okay. Well, maybe you are.
Thanks, Evan.
The next step in his downfall is imminent. So we're just going to kind of go into it. Let's talk about the CrockerCon a little bit, just generally as a show.
Okay.
CrockerCon has been around, not 10 years, but we had our 10th show. It has had its 10th show. We missed a couple years, I think, during COVID. Mm-hmm. I think, was it just one or was it two? I think it was two.
My understanding was just one. They did a virtual version of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How long have you been going to the show as a vendor?
I want to say 6-7 years. I definitely was not there in the beginning. And CrockerCon started in 2013. So, yeah, it was 1 year they missed.
Yeah, and I think I've missed only 1 year. I did 2013 with Eben because we were still doing Eben 07 back then.
And we should probably establish that, that Eben is the driving force behind CrockerCon. This was his idea. This was his baby. Mm-hmm. And this was something that he actually brought to the museum multiple times, and they rejected.
Yeah, years before, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was by happenstance, and he met up with somebody, and they said, hey, you know that idea about the comic book convention inside the museum? Let's try to put it together. And he's been the driving force every year to try and make this thing better every year.
Yeah. So Eben Burgoon is who we're talking about. He and I started doing comics at the same time because we worked on a comic together called Eben 07.
You worked on a comic book?
Believe it or not. And it was a comedy action book about secret agent janitors. And when we were doing Eben 07, once we had moved to Sacramento, actually.
Whoa, wait. Wait. Did you guys do Eben 07 before you moved to Sacramento?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did it. Started in 2007. I was living in upstate New York, and he was in our hometown, San Luis Obispo. And then we just actually happened to move to Sacramento at the same time.
Wow.
Because, we went to high school together back in San Luis Obispo as well. And so we just happened to move to Sacramento because his girlfriend at the time, got a job at the Sac B. Mm. And then my wife got a job here, and I got into grad school here. And so like, oh, hey, Evan, this is awesome. And we were, because we had already established sort of like a remote working relationship because we were living across the country from each other. But moving together, I think kind of not only kept the comic going for longer than it not should have, but would have, because since we're together, we could actually maybe collaborate on books, go to shows together. Because if anybody knows anything about Eben, like he is much, compared to me, much more of the outgoing, extroverted kind of person, whereas I am shy. Yeah. And so it really kind of not only kept our comic going. But once he started interacting with the public about comics, about creativity, he definitely started on a trajectory that brought him to where he is today. And part of that was he got involved with, I hope he doesn't mind me telling tales out of school.
Oh.
He got involved with what they call a flywheel program that was organized through the city, I believe. Or it's basically like an incubator program where they chose a variety of different local creatives and kind of like worked directly with them to help them develop their business. And one of the meetings, the Crocker people came. He was like, we should do a comic convention at the museum. And like you said, they're like, what are you talking about? And then, yeah, years later, they came back to him, I guess, and said, hey, remember that idea? He's like, yes, I do. Out of the way. Right? And so, like, I think we should stay right up top, like, how much work he put into this. This is like his baby. Yeah. And he's put the effort and creative time into making the show what it is, but also, like you said, growing year after year after year. We can't downplay how important he is to this, and like what an incredible accomplishment he has achieved and continues to achieve with the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, with Ebon 07, we were there the first year, and I was there the second year with Long John, where I didn't even have the first book. I printed out the first 10 pages, I think, and made like a preview book. And I think the only one I missed was 2016. I think it was 2016. I missed the year because it was a bad year. Quick edit here, even though it doesn't really matter. Mostly due to my poor skills at archiving on my website. I did another look through, and it turns out I've actually been to every CrockerCon. So, go me. It's very exciting. All right, back to the show. Because it's a really important show to me, but I would say to Sacramento, without a doubt.
It's one of the few shows that, at least to me, seems like it wants to highlight the Sacramento art community, and not just the fine arts, and not that comic books art can't be fine arts, but when you think of a museum, you particularly think of upper echelon type artwork and sculptures, but CrockerCon just seems like it's a nice mixture of the two things of pop culture and fine art thing.
For sure, and bringing those worlds together, because it's really high. What do you call it? It's really emphasized to members of the museum to come because it's part of the Art Mix program. And but also because it is a pop culture convention, like brings in a lot of quote unquote outsiders into the show. And actually, that's what I love about the show, because when I was in school, when I was at community college, I was an art major first, and I started taking art history classes, and I was just gobbling up everything. I'm like, maybe I should be an art history major, which no, like there's not a lot of opportunities for people with art history degrees. But it is but I love that stuff. And so like I became obsessed with Renaissance art, with Baroque art, a little bit with Rococo, and not really too interested in Impressionists and after that. So like I just love reading about, looking at, studying art and talking about it. And so it's fun because, I love going to comic shows, but a lot of conversations are, especially with like customers and people I don't know very well, it tends to be kind of superficial, Yeah. But at this show, not only do we have like repeat customers that are like comic book fans coming in, we can talk about like, oh, this is what we've been doing since we last saw each other last year or something like that. But I also can talk about like art history and art theory with like a lot of the members that show up, if they're not too hammered. And
which that happens.
It does. Oh yeah. And it's a lot of fun for me because I get to I'm going to say it, tickle every part of my brain when it comes to art and stuff like that. So I love this show so much.
No, and going back to what you were saying as far as reconnecting with people maybe that you don't see throughout the year, as far as customers, and getting to showcase, hey, this is what I've done since last time we met. I mean, that's one of the things Evan and I actually tried to do this year is when we were going through applications, we tried to specify and we tried to really push that in order for you to be a part of the event, we wanted you to have something different, have something new that you didn't bring last year, because we don't want things to get stale. We don't want people to show year after year with the same prints, with the same comic books, with the same sketch cards, because that's going to make people eventually be like, oh, well, what's the point of coming back? And we want to keep things fresh. We want to keep things new. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to try to continue. Well, I'm going to try to make sure we continue going forward also. For sure.
Yeah. It's always great because not only seeing repeat customers and stuff, but like one of the things I like saying about the show is I get to see all my friends, right? Because like pretty much, I'm not going to say everybody, but most of the local community that has attended CrockerCon tends to keep coming back. And it's like, oh, hey, there's David Andrew and there's Jared. And, there's John and Ben. And, it's always good to see Chris and Jen and Pam, of course.
But then you get to meet new friends like Melissa.
Yeah, right? It's so funny. Oh, we'll talk about that a bit later. But she's like, when we first met each other, she's like, it was funny, like, talking to you. Because, like, oh, we have, like, all the same friends, but we've never met. Because I actually was looking it up. You actually mentioned her on Con Artist episode number 6 when we were first talking about going into lockdown. And you brought her up in the context of webcomics and her being very active and having an active community and stuff like that. And just to be clear, we're talking about Melissa McCommon, who makes the comic Epic Chaos. Yeah. We kind of ran over that.
I mean, honestly, it's weird to say it, but she was very instrumental in me continuing to make comics, because she was I think I told you this, she was my con neighbor, my table mate, at my very first event that I ever did. And I was nervous, and she helped calm me down, which is really weird considering that she's probably about 10 years younger than I am. But she is when I say a veteran, Melissa is a veteran when it comes to making comic books, making art, and getting yourself out there. And like you said, she's really big about webcomics, but she's also big about community events. She started her own event in Vacaville a few years ago. And it's been going, my understanding is going pretty well.
Yeah. There's local creators, and then there's like local creators with a capital C. Like, we just kind of, it seems like, oh, these people have their shit together, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh, I threw this together and I'm, stapling a bunch of copies I made from Kinko's or something like that, right? It's like, oh no, she's a pro.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. But this year was also different, right? Your role specifically,
my role
was different. You're an exhibitor at the show.
Yeah, I guess it's a little different this year. Yeah,
but you couldn't meet that requirement and didn't have anything new, so you didn't have a table this year.
Yeah, so, I was kicked out of it, and they said, no, Kyrun, you can't.
Instead, we got another idea for you. You were basically running the show this year. Like, you were like Evan's kind of right-hand man.
Whoa, it really is going to be that kind of show, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
No,
in every way.
I took on a new role this year of being the co-coordinator of this year's CrockerCon. Eben Ragoon last year took a full-time position with the Crocker Art Museum. Right. And with doing that, he has taken over all of the art mixes, putting them together, and along with a bunch of other responsibilities. And he decided that as much as he loves CrockerCon and as much as he wants to see it thrive, he just does not have the time to put the effort in that he wanted to. So he put out a call to ask people, hey, can someone come help? When I first started, I thought this would be more of a volunteer situation. And then when I sat down with him for our first meeting, he was like, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm stepping down, Evan is, and I'm asking you, Kyrun, to take over and lead this charge to make sure Crocker stays functional, stays viable, and keeps growing. And I was like, okay, I'm honored. I appreciate you willing to give me this opportunity, and I would gladly do it. And for the past 5 months, he's been sort of showing me the ropes, telling me how to do things, how the con runs, giving me a lot of insight on the do's and don'ts of working with the museum, which there are a lot.
Yeah, it's different than working with like working with a local like gathering center or something like that, right? To put on a small show. It's a museum. Like it's a capital M museum. Yeah, the oldest art museum west of the Mississippi. Yeah. And for a while it was the longest continually operating museum. If not the United States, definitely in California. It's an incredible museum.
And with saying all that, the museum has a lot of history, a lot of integrity that it wants to uphold. It has a lot of fine art pieces that it wants to ensure stays fine art.
Both classical and contemporary.
Yeah. And it has a lot of structures both inside and outside the museum that it needs to protect. With putting this together, Evan showed me what I need to do, what I can't do, to keep all those things intact. And that was one of the biggest things that I didn't realize. And is it a little bit of a jumping hoop situation? Yes, definitely. But it's also just learning learning how to work with a group again. I'm a full-time comic book artist. This has been my full-time job for the past 7 years. So I've been working by myself primarily for the past
Yeah.
7 years, and working with a group like this, a very esteemed group. They have their own rules, regulations that I had to sort of learn to work around and work with.
Yeah.
But it's been an exciting time, and I'm hoping that I get some good feedback from all of the vendors and exhibitors. Because I do, there are going to be changes I want to implement. Not necessarily big things, but I want to make the con my own, but also I want to keep the essence of what Evan wanted. Evan's
Right.
dream of this is to mix the pop culture things, but a little bit of the small indie expos that are floating around there. He always wanted this to be something where it showcases Sacramento art and a little bit of like the underground scene, but also bringing in some of the bigger name people. And I want to keep that same vibe, but
Right.
but maybe make it a little bit bigger. I don't know. I have big dreams, but who knows if those dreams will come true. And one of those dreams is to not let Dan back in.
Fair. That's fair. You touched on this, but I feel like your job there's like a hard divide. There's like pre-show and during show. You talked about, if obviously go into as much detail as you want. Like in those 4 months leading up to this, obviously you talked about kind of like choosing the vendors that would be at the show. What other kind of responsibilities go into getting a show ready to actually happen?
We had to figure out our special guests. We had to plan out the panels, read through all the applications of what panels were offered to us, and see what we wanted to maybe showcase. Unfortunately, there were a good amount of panels that were asked to be a part of the team and a part of CrockerCon, but because we had such a limited amount of time, we had to actually decline a few of them.
Oh, wow.
There comes the point of navigating where people tables were going to go. And you would think that's an easy thing. It's like, hey, put the table here and they're good to go. But people have special requirements. Some people can't be outside. Some people could. Some people need a bigger table. So all these things are things that you have to remember as you're putting it together. And then you have special requests from other groups, other people that you have to sometimes tell them, hey, we can't do that. That was a hard thing. It's like people wanted to do certain things. People wanted to bring things onto the museum floor, and we had to say, hey, this is still a museum. This is still a multi-million-dollar museum.
Listen, okay, I get what you're saying. I asked for that chocolate fondue fountain. I'm glad you were able to work it out, but I get from your tone of voice, you were really upset with me.
Yeah.
But at least you also got me that parrot I wanted, just to sit there and sing songs at people as they walk by. It's very nice. I promise not to do it again. I'll probably ask for the chocolate fountain again, but I'll stop with the parrot. I'm sorry about that. That was a bad idea.
I did like your idea of the ice sculpture of Long John.
Yeah.
And that is something we're considering next year. And
It was a little awkward when it finally melted and all that was left was the butt and the flap. That was, again, maybe a wood sculpture next time.
maybe a chocolate Long John.
There we go.
And that becomes the fondue fountain that you wanted.
There we go. People fighting over the butt flap. It'll be great.
No, but there were times where Evan and I would get a request and we'd be like, I'd turn to him and I'd say, Evan, is this something you normally do? And he'd have to let me know what the requirements are, what the museum asks, and things like that. So there were a lot of back and forth. And then there were things that I wanted from the museum that I just couldn't get. And I think that was part of the learning how to navigate the ins and out of, honestly, office environment.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a learning experience. I had to take so many notes on so many different things.
I can imagine.
And there were so many aspects of just putting together a convention that I didn't even think about.
What was the most surprising one?
Honestly, the marketing side of things.
Oh, interesting.
Just how certain groups work and use marketing compared to others. We had to really do a grassroots effort. And that's why I really put the word out to all our exhibitors of, hey, please mention as much as possible about CrockerCon. Because and this is no slight in any way to the museum, because the museum did a great job in talking about it. I mean, they scheduled you for a TV interview. They put out
Yeah.
they put out their emails and guest lists, but they also have so many other events that are going on at the museum that they can't just focus everyday posts about CrockerCon. So
Yeah.
we had to really work together with the museum and with yourself and all the other exhibitors about, we need to get the word out, because that's our responsibility. Yes,
Yeah.
you have a table there, but I am asking for your help to talk about it, because without your help, we're not going to get the crowds that we want. And that was probably the biggest surprise.
In terms of like producing the show, what was your favorite part? I'm sure it was all stressful, but like, what was the aspect of it that you found most enjoyable, or like kind of maybe something you didn't expect you'd enjoy?
I mean, all of it was fun. And it's a weird thing to say, but one of the things I actually really enjoyed was, Evan tasked me to distribute the posters for CrockerCon to the local comic book stores and things like that. And just driving around Sacramento and going to comic stores that I had never even been in or even heard of.
Yeah.
Like, Evan didn't give me a list of comic stores, so I just pulled up all the comic shops in Sacramento. And I know, living in Sacramento, quite a few of them, but there are ones that have been there forever that I had never even knew of. They're on some random street somewhere in Citrus Heights.
You're like,
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah.
And so it was cool going in there, introducing myself, meeting the store owners or store workers, and just seeing how all the different stores work and how they.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a vision of what a comic book store looks like, but you can go to 3 different stores and they look completely different.
Right.
They have the same feel sometimes, but the layout of things are just completely different. So that was actually pretty fun, pretty exciting for me. Another thing was, it is weird to say, but just being able to sit back and watch the con unfold, just knowing that this
Yeah.
was 4 months of work, and just be all like, and here it's here. I get to
Right.
just watch it do its thing.
Like setting up all those gears, clicking them into a place, and just like, okay, let's push go,
Yeah.
and just like just see it unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, what's that thing? A Rubik's
Like a Rube Goldberg
Rube Goldberg.
machine.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
it's like putting in the Rube Goldberg machine together and then watching the ball fall through the entire thing, and it's like, oh, I did that.
It worked.
It got together. Hey, great.
But that brings up another question that I wanted to ask, which is, like I said, you have the preparation period, then there's the show, and yeah, sure, watching it happen. But it was pretty funny seeing you be almost hitting some of the same things you said that Evan has said over the years. But like you were, well, let's just be, you lost 3 pounds that day,
I did.
right?
I did.
So what was your responsibilities during the show? What was that like?
My responsibilities during the show were making sure all our guests were getting to their panels properly and on time, making sure the equipment at those panels worked properly, and making sure that people were aware of where things were, making sure signage was up. We put up, Evan and I, in the facilities. I do want to give a big shout out to the facilities, the security team at Crocker Art Museum. They worked their butts off from the morning of September 12th to a couple hours past the show ending, just putting together and putting up things. But we helped out putting all the tables together. We helped out putting all the linens on, making sure people got to the right table, putting together the drawing or the coloring table, which thank you for submitting your artwork for that. That worked out really well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was just a lot of things just running around. And like if somebody had an issue, hey, like people were complaining about the sound volume, the music volume inside the museum.
It was super loud.
So I did my best to go out there and talk to the people behind that, and they said, "Hey, can we turn this down?" And we found a nice medium.
Yeah.
But it was just things like that. It was just making sure things just kept flowing naturally, kept flowing smoothly. That was my goal.
Which sounds exhausting.
It was, and I didn't get a chance to sit down and eat. That was the biggest thing why I was losing 3 pounds in an 8-hour time frame, because I got there about 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Did not leave till about 10 that evening, and during that 9-hour time frame, all I had to eat was one small snow cone.
That is not very much.
Oh, no.
Again, going from exhibitor to co-coordinator, obviously you were involved behind the scenes creating the thing. We're focused on, this is like an interview this time, because like
feels
this
like
is
it
a first for con artists, because like we talk about going to cons, like, oh, now we have someone on the inside.
Oh, God.
What are some things you saw, or you finally saw how they work, maybe after hearing about it? Because most of the time we're trapped behind the tables, right? And like luckily for me, my wife showed up and was able to get me some food, right? Or like one of my coworkers at school showed up and she bought me a beverage. I'm like, oh,
nice.
This is awesome. I should have more friends. And
I love how you put, I should have more friends. Like, you don't have a lot of friends. Come on now. I know you do.
well, there's capital F friends, and then there's lowercase f friends. We'll talk afterwards about which one you are.
I don't even think I'm an F, but it's not friend. It's a
Starts with an F and ends with
starts with an M, ends with a That's
anything that kind of stood out to you, actually beginning to see the whole show this time? Anything that stood out to you that you actually got to see because you weren't stuck behind a table? Or that you found most interesting? Or you're like, oh, this is how it works. Or, oh, this is how it works?
I don't know. I mean, I guess because I had the last 4 months of just seeing the behind the scene things, during the show, nothing really surprised me.
Sure. Yeah, that's good, right? It's better if you're not surprised.
Yeah. I do feel like a lot of the vendors should just have the access of seeing how things are going, how we get from point A to point B. I think that does help them with understanding how a convention runs. I think because I think a lot of us as comic vendors or just exhibitors, we just think the conventions are out there and they don't really care. And I know there are people in other conventions that don't. They just want your money and they just throw you out there. But I do think one thing that helped me out with this is that showing that this convention really did care about the exhibitors. They cared about the vendors. They put a lot of time and effort in trying to make everything flow well and to make everything as convenient for our exhibitors as possible. One of the examples I can give you is we had the Sacramento Ghostbusters out there. They're cosplay. They're a nonprofit cosplay group that they just really love the Ghostbusters. They create their own Ghostbusters uniform, ectopacks, all that, and they came out there and we gave them this space, but they had this. I don't even know how do you describe it. It's just this wall of all the ectopacks that they put together, and they just allow people to look at them because they're different, like camouflage ones and things like that. Yeah. And behind the space we gave them, there's like these empty benches, and they're like, "Can we use this area to just display our stuff?" And I was like, "Well, why can't you? Like,
right?
Like, what? Why do you?" It was one of the things like, why are you asking? Just take it. Like in my mind, I was like, just take it. No one's there. Just take it. But it was that idea that when you're at a convention, you're assigned to a table. You feel like sometimes you're confined to that table. And it was that idea of, hey, this is empty air. Can we use this? I was like, yeah, you can use that. Go ahead. So it's just little things like that. I was like, okay, we need to maybe be more clear and more open to our exhibitors about what we can do, what we can't do. Maybe explain to them what our limitations are a little bit more. But because we want to make it as, at least I do, I want to make this as fun as possible for everybody that's out there. I want to make it where everybody has a great evening. And if you're trying to make money, I want to make sure you make money. I mean, that's always going to be my big thing. I don't want this evening to be a waste of your time, more than anything. And I want that also for any of the con goers that are coming in and paying their money to see all the exhibits and all the events. I want them to have a good evening, have a good time, enjoy themselves, and hopefully you do.
I think you highlight part of what makes, especially for those that get invested, what makes CrockerCon different. Not only because it's at a museum and that's kind of cool or gives it extra weight or importance, but it's especially, I mean, it's not required, but there is at least a collaborative aspect to it as an exhibitor or vendor. with the shows, like, I mean, a part of it is probably just nostalgia and sentimentality. Or like, I want this show to succeed. To an extent, like, I think I might have talked about this afterwards on Facebook or whatever, but like, especially this year, like, it was hitting me really hard. I just had my birthday. I'm in my mid-40s now. There's something about the show, like, I don't even care if I make money. I just want to be like, isn't this awesome? Right? Like, just CrockerCon is awesome. And just like most of the conversations I had, obviously I did my pitch, Kyrun, just to make sure, I'm still doing my job.
Good job.
Listen to previous con artists to hear Kyrun complain about my vending ability. But a lot of it was just talking about the show. A lot of people that came by my booth hadn't been to the show before.
That's good.
And they're like, I didn't know, this is awesome. Like this, I didn't know this existed. And like, I love it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I got to fill them in like, yeah, this has been going on forever. I've been here since, it was small.
It was small. It was small at one point.
Yeah. And people just being appreciative for not only having a show, but for what it was. But yeah, like almost if we can I'm not a part of the team, but like this is be impossible and no one would participate. But like for like the vendors, whatever you want to call them, like the vendors that come every year, the vendors that are clearly invested, maybe almost having like a pre-show meeting with them. Like, listen, you're a vendor here, but like
your family.
Yeah, let's just figure out how we can make this, how we can work together during the show. Maybe not, obviously you're gonna be stuck at your table, you're gonna be selling your stuff, but like really communicating that this is a show for you as it is much for the museum, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, almost like, but my first thought was like, oh, you guys should have a panel at the show, but that's impossible because you're so busy. Like, hey, this is what it takes to run a show, right? But that's what I was like. But the people I want to go to that panel are the vendors. So yeah, like I don't know, it'd be weird. It'd be cool, especially since it is a museum, if there's some way to like document how the show gets put together, and especially like since it's continuing, it's more than 10 years on now. Like that'd be a great opportunity for a documentarian to put together some sort of documentation of what this show is and what makes it special. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
But
no, I totally
that's all
agree.
limited by money and time, right?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is time and money. And I agree that exhibitors like yourself, like Jared, like David Andre, like Robert Love, the ones that are constantly coming back every year, we do want that feedback because you're the lifeblood of CrockerCon. You are the ones that just want this to succeed as much as anybody. So I think that's one of the things that I talked to Evan about is we really want to get that feedback from you, the exhibitors, of what we did right, what we did wrong. Yeah. Where do you guys want to see the convention go? Like I have my vision, but that doesn't mean my vision is going to in line with what you guys want. So we definitely want to make sure that we're in step with what you guys want and what you feel like the convention should be. And I don't know about a panel about how to run a convention. I don't know.
It'd be tough. It'd be impossible.
I think it will be a little boring.
The one thing I think needs to happen is that you need to be dressed up like Mr. Sinister. Just, I want you in like platform shoes. So you're like 7 feet tall, big ropey cape, diamond in the middle of your chest.
So I feel like though, if I do that and I don't do the white face though, I'll look
I didn't
more
want
like
to bring that
Blade.
up. Yeah, I realized my mistake as soon as I said it.
Yeah. And I'd be like, Kyrun, you can't come back to CrockerCon.
Right. And that's my plan all along. Actually, that leads into a good question I had to kind of wrap up this segment, because there's one more thing I want to talk about that isn't directly related to CrockerCon, so you can go back to being a creator here. Was it hard, or how hard was it? That's it. No, just joking.
Whoa.
How hard was it to be on the other side of the table this year? Like, was there any nostalgia for like, man,
yeah,
I just want to be behind my booth?
No, there is a ton of remorse of just missing being behind a table and talking to potential customers. There was also times where I did have that lull of not doing anything, and I didn't know what to do. I was just like,
right. Yeah, I could be making money right now.
Yeah, but it was more like, okay, I feel like I should be doing something, and I'm just sort of wandering. But there definitely was times where I missed that idea of just showcasing my books and my creativity. But then I looked around and I said, this is also my creativity.
That's true. Yeah.
Seeing this unfold is partially from my brain. Like not to give out too much information, but I basically put everybody's tables where you were sitting was probably because of my thought process. So if you don't like your table, blame me. I mean,
oh, I will.
Yeah.
No. Why you put me across from Jared, man? I hate that. I was joking. You can't hate Jared Konopitsky.
You really cannot hate Jared. Jared is so cool. And he's always happy. It's a little
off-putting, yeah.
It's a little sickening at times.
Yeah, no, he's great. I'm glad we have someone like that because, especially like going into hour 3 of a show, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But Jared's like, hey, look at my shoes. He bought shoes off of Amazon that lit up.
Oh, yeah, that was so hilarious.
Then he went behind his table. He's like, wait a minute, no one can see my shoes.
I do want to buy those shoes, especially with Halloween coming up. I do want to buy those shoes. But I want to ask you though. I mean, because this has been a lot of interview about me. Like, what was your experience with this year's CrockerCon compared to the past 7-8 years that you've done it?
I guess technically, 9 shows.
Oh, yeah,
I think I just missed one. There was something about it, like, I kind of knew what to, I keep track of all my sales over the years and stuff like that, not just from this show, but from all my shows. And I'm like, okay, there's kind of a trend here. I kind of know what to expect. And if I hit that kind of goal, I'm fine. So with that being said, I wasn't too worried about sales, which kind of, obviously probably because of how well the show was run. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, I kind of was able to be a bit more reflective and like step back and like I felt comfortable there, not only because of what you and Evan and the team provided and made it easy for me, but also just, it's the 10th one and I know these people, I know what kind of show it is. Just kind of like look around, Mm-hmm. And my wife got a really good shot of the show floor from above.
She did.
And it's like,
I saw that.
I'm like, this is awesome. And like, I got really sentimental in a way that I'm not ashamed of, but I was just like, oh, wow, this is, and then, honestly, at the end of the show was probably a really poignant part where like everybody's out and it was just you and me and Evan hanging out for a little bit. And I'm like, wow, this is like, look how far we've come in a way, right? And obviously I'm just a vendor at the show, but like, I was so proud of you guys and especially Evan, but you know what I mean? But like seeing like how much work he's put in over the years and seeing how you've picked up the reins and made the show work. Cause I know part of that was harrowing and stressful, right? And maybe there's a part in the back of your brain, you're like, let's hope this works. And to have it go as well as it did, I just really felt like I understood and felt the monument that the show is in the community, right? And that's one of the things I sort of said in wrap-up Facebook post that I made, or social media post, which is like, it kind of, to me, talking to all the people who was there, it was their first time there, and seeing the people that have been there before, and seeing just the general excitement, like it, and we talked about this at the beginning of the show, it kind of felt like Sacramento finally realized what it had. And it made me really excited for what the show will be in the future. So like, it was really nostalgic, sentimental, sort of reflective event for me. And I did hit my sales goals.
Nice.
So make that clear. And seeing a lot of the new vendors too. It was the first time at a show I saw a guy just hanging out at my booth, like he was a vendor and he's just hanging out at my booth and he was like staring at me. I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, I just want to say I'm a huge fan. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's like, it's so nice to meet you. Like, he follows me on Instagram and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know your name. It's so cool to meet you. And he's like, yeah, like, I went on Reddit and was like promoting your books. And some people said that they were mad at me because I just spent $40 on his website. I'm like, well, thank you. But yeah, it was like, oh, yeah, like, I guess maybe that's the more sort of reflective, maybe even selfish aspects. Like, oh, I'm a part of this institution called CrockerCon, and made me even more loyal to it than I obviously was before. It's like, yeah, like you said, I really felt like, oh, I'm part of the machine here in a good way. Like, I want to keep this machine chugging along, And
then this year you added more to the machine. I mean, not to maybe.
Oh, the panel?
Yeah. I don't know if you were going to talk about that or not, but I mean,
yeah.
I appreciate you adding more than what you normally do. Actually, you've done a couple panels at CrockerCon.
Yeah, we did one. Yeah, last year you hosted one with me and Robert Love. And then you and I sat on the stage the year previously with I think Robert Loeb was there as well. And we just talked about making comics. Always the last panel of the show. That seems to be my gig.
I changed it up this year.
What do you mean?
Wait, were you last panel this year? No.
Yeah, 8:30.
Oh yeah, you were. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't care. It was cool being in a different room. Like the huge auditorium is kind of intimidating, but we're in the meeting room and like, oh yeah, this was the first time that I actually was involved in putting the presentation together with Melissa. She took the reins. I'm gonna be honest. She does a lot of presentations like this, but we collaborated on like what topics do we want to cover. It's only 20 minutes. What can we do? And then she put together the slides and like if you want to add any art or anything like that, feel free to do so. Which actually caused a lot of stress because she had like obviously pre-made images. I'm like, oh, I can't just put one thing in there. I gotta. There's some empty space here, and so I'm waking up in the morning like I'm letting her down. I don't have a new piece of art to put there, like stressing out. But yeah, it went really well. But 20 minutes it goes by in a blink of an eye. But it was really cool talking to her. And even though we approach our careers very differently, not in a good or bad way, just different goals. And it was fun, kind of actually talking about these topics. Oh, we overlap in terms of our ideas behind making comics and making web comics is what the panel was about, more than we don't, right? So yeah, it was a great opportunity. Thanks for throwing me together with her, because I'm guessing she's the one that asked for the panel. No, and then
actually the panel was my idea. Okay. I wanted something different, and I knew of your experience and I knew of her experience, and I was like, you guys would be a great match together.
Yeah. And so it was. I guess I want to say congratulations on the show, man, and I look forward to see what you do next year.
Thank you.
And as a staunch supporter of the show, don't screw it up.
I will try.
I want to end on just one little topic. I don't know if there's a lot to say, but on the opposite side, right? This is a monumental year for CrockerCon. We got to participate this year in a first for a show. We were at the Great Escape Games Summer Comic Con.
Oh yeah, yes.
A one-day event at Great Escape Games in Sacramento. It's a tabletop card game kind of shop that decided to, I know they've hosted events, but this is like, let's do a Comic Con. And we both kind of jumped on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you like getting on the ground floor of shows? And like, let's just start here. Let's start from day one and see if it's something that we can grow with. Or is it just like, it's a show, I need a show to fill a weekend?
Well, I mean, definitely it's a show, and I wanted to just get out there because I have not done a lot of shows this year. So I felt a little rusty, and that's one of the reasons why I did choose it. But I also wanted to see what they were offering. I've been to one other event that Great Escape put together, but that was a couple of years ago. So I wanted to see what they were doing different this time. As far as starting a new con, I'm indifferent. I more look at it as, is the person putting together this con, are they reputable? Are they someone I know? Like, is this just some fly-by-night person that's putting together a con to try to make a couple bucks? If I get that vibe, I'm probably not going to go to it. But if it's someone like Great Escape's been in Sacramento for years.
They're in. Yeah.
And so I know that they're going to take care of the vendors. They're going to do what they can to try and make this a good con or a good event. So that was one of the reasons why I said, you know what, let's just do it. And then, like I said, because I wanted to see what they were doing differently compared to the first time that I was there.
I bring that up because there's a quirk in my brain. Like, I really like to go to a first show. And like, if it becomes something, I can keep coming back. I've done that a couple times. There's a Sac Indie Expo that was held at the Big Sexy Brewing.
Yes, I remember that one.
And
oh yeah, sorry, you were there. You were there.
Yeah. Me and my buddy Josh were there, and unfortunately, it didn't keep going. It was fun. It was hot as hell that day. But the other one that really stands out to me is a show that was, I'm not going to say my biggest disaster, because I did fine. It was in 2019. It was the Reno Pop Culture Convention. It was my first like full weekend show, my only full weekend show. It was a 3-day show in Reno at an event center, like a convention center, and I was in Artist Alley. But man, it it died on arrival. Like no one. Well, people were coming there to get signatures from famous people.
Sure.
But no one was coming to Artist Alley.
Oh,
and
no.
I was able to make table, but like, man, it was for all the hassle of driving out to Reno and getting a hotel, and like I was really like, oh, this is going to be a huge event, right? And it was a big event, but I'm like, this is where I can finally put my toe into the weekend shows, and like actually start making more money than I would do at local one-day shows, and I did not make the amount of money I was expecting. I was trying to temper my expectations, and it was a real bummer. Oh, it was my second weekend show. I also did the last Ape ever, but that wasn't the first. Yeah, that was fun.
You seem to go to a lot of the smaller shows, not smaller shows, but shows that are focused more on indie stuff and small press stuff. Is that fair to say?
Because it's a Western, right?
Oh.
And like I don't aim for like SAC anime or like superhero kind of focus shows because I don't think I'll do well.
Okay.
I was excited about Reno just because where the comic takes place is not too far from Reno,
True.
right? But keeping things local, like I was interested in Great Escape because what I liked about it, even though it was promoted as a Comic-Con, like it's at a game shop. I'm like, let's try a new venue. I like that idea. Like I would be interested in doing a show like at a bookstore. I'm like that could be interesting. It was fine. It was what I did notice the most out of that was the people that came to the show weren't always just people I see at every show I do, in terms of the customers, right? But because of that, I actually got to meet people that a lot of people know that I'd never met before. I don't remember his name, but the guy that does StocktonCon, right?
Oh, Mike.
He came by. Yeah, he came by and like he introduced himself and he was like, "Yeah, this is awesome stuff. We should get in touch." I'm like, "All right." About going to shows and stuff like that. He also does LodiCon, is that right?
Yeah, he runs LodiCon and StocktonCon. He also runs one of the local wrestling promotions out here.
Yeah. But it was a fun show. We got to talk a lot, and it'll be interesting to see if they do it next year, and if they do, what changes they make. I was surprised. I was surprised that they're like, it's going to be all day. I'm like, no, it's not. it's absolutely not.
There's no way.
Be here at 8 and we close at 10. I'm like, no. Not because like I won't be there, but like that's not how shows work, my dude.
Yeah, and I had already knew I was not going to be there all day like that. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No way.
So kind of run the gamut here. We 10th CrockerCon. We're doing a different role. Great Escape Games Summer Comic Con, the very first show, getting off the ground. A lot of hitches and not issues, but definitely less confidence in what that show was in terms of how they were running things. It's cool to participate in all these different shows from the veteran to the new, and I guess most importantly that we get to hang out at everyone.
Yeah, it's always great when you go to a convention or a show or event, and you see someone that you know, not just because of the fact that you get somebody to talk to, but at least for me, my anxiety lessens a little bit. It's like that fear of the unknown lessens a lot when I get to see somebody that I know. It helps with that. It does help with that confidence. Also, hey, Dan's here. If I screw up, I can at least know I have a good time in talking with you. I'm always happy to see you, dude.
Same. One of the questions I always ask is like, who's going to be at this show? I assume you'll be there because you're kind of at every show. But at least every show I go to, you go to more shows than I do.
No, I think you actually beat me this year. Nice.
I don't even know what I did this year. Honestly, one of the ththings I love about doing shows is just getting to hang out with friends. Of course, you. We often, like, when you book a show or when I get a show, when we immediately text each other, like, are you going to this? Are you going to that? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So, for me, because this is also the 10th year I've been doing Long John, right? And so I think that probably added to the nostalgia and sentimentality of it all.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to people. I was talking to Chris Wisnia, and he's like, when did you guys put out your first book? Like, 2011, 2012? I'm like, no, 2008. He's like, holy shit. Right after both Evan and I moved to Sacramento, we got on printing our first book pretty quickly. He's like, oh, you guys have been doing this a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did the math. I'm like, I've been doing this 17 years.
Wow.
And
You're old.
yeah, tell me about it. And you've been, I mean, are you nearing 10? Have you hit 10 yet?
Yeah, I'm at 10 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm old too now. Thank you for reminding me of that. Great.
I mean, you're always older than me, which is great.
And this will be the last con artist, just to let you know, dear listener.
So the last question I have is actually probably, I feel like we're really serious today, but there's a lot of interesting stuff to cover, getting the nitty gritty of it. But the probably most important question is, who would win in a fight, CrockerCon or Optimus Primal? As a fan of Beast Wars.
Wow, I can't believe you're putting me on a spot like that. So I still gotta go with Optimus Primal.
Yeah,
he transforms into a gorilla. CrockerCon transforms into
a building.
Like once
I guess two buildings. Yeah.
Yeah. Once he transforms, it's over for him. What's he gonna do? Be like, I'm gonna close my doors.
Hey, no, this is what happens. He transforms. Like Primal is like, I'm going to go inside and gut him. Okay. But he goes inside and starts looking at all the art. And he's like, wow, this is real nice. Oh. Look at this piece. This says something about me.
Well, and since it's CrockerTron,
yeah,
more than likely when he goes inside, CrockerCon is going on.
That's true. Yeah, so I hope you brought your wallet, yeah. Optimus Primal. But yeah, congratulations on CrockerCon being part of that. And yeah, it must have been a wild experience.
It was.
But I'm glad of all the people that submitted, you got in there.
I think I might be the only person that submitted, just to be honest. I might be.
Actually, so let's end on this question. I know you have talked about in the past of starting a show.
Yeah.
The dumb question is like, is this getting the inside look at how to do things? Is that are you getting ideas of how to make that happen? But of course, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, honestly, when I submitted it, that was one of the reasons why I did it. I was like, This will be a good insight for me on how to put together a convention. It does give me ideas on the steps I need to take to get that convention going. So yeah, this was definitely one of the reasons.
I'm really excited about the future Long John convention that you're going to put together. And that's what matters.
It's all Western. Everybody has to come into with just their pajamas.
Yep. And the only books that can be sold are the 6 issues of Long John.
Are we getting issue 6?
It's only pretty soon.
Okay.
Well, hopefully, I gotta finish it.
You heard it here. He's got to finish it.
Kind of getting a sense of how things work. When do you think you'd start feeling comfortable? Like, okay, I think I can go. Not necessarily step away from CrockerCon, but like then they're like, oh, I think I'm ready to put a show together and make it go. Like, do you think maybe another year and like you'd finally get the answers, or have you started thinking of a timeline, perhaps?
I have not started thinking of a timeline, but I want to see how next year goes. With next year being all me, I do want to see how that show runs with just myself. Not that Evan won't be there to help me or guide me, but this will basically be my show. So I do want to see how that goes next year. And if that goes well, then yeah, maybe 2027.
Maybe.
Because I would need at least a year to find a venue, start getting people out there, things like that. So probably 2027 at the earliest.
All right, you heard it here first. I got to finish my book, and Kyrun's going to start a show in 2027.
There you go.
Just making promises. That's what the show is all about. Anyway, thank you, Kyrun.
Oh, thank you, Dan, for having me on.
Due to my perhaps damaging levels of shyness and self-doubt, I always knew I was a creator in Sacramento who knew a lot of the people that were part of the local art and comics scene. But because I wasn't overly talkative or engaging, I never considered for a second that I was also part of that local creative scene. Belonging comes with time, even if you're accepted by your peers right away. Belonging is something you have to feel, too. It brings with it a confidence and an ease of communication. I don't know where that feeling changed for me, but it was the reflective nature of the show that made me realize the fact that I am a part of the Sacramento comics scene, at the very least. In fact, I've been a part of it for a long time. What might have kept me from the realization was that while I was at shows like CrockerCon, or earlier Second Saturdays, or another local show, SatCon, or Free Comic Book Day celebrations, to name a few, I didn't think of it as a scene at all. It only happened in hindsight and secluded retrospective thoughts. That it wasn't a context where people are acting or collaborating to spread a specific tone or message. No, I was just getting to sell some books and talk to friends I see every now and then. People I talk to online and share stories of process and progress and can't wait to see again to see how far they've come in that intervening time. As reflective and culturally critical as I can be, and as I like to be, to my own deficit, pretending to be on the outside looking in, I realized that is exactly what a local art or comic or music scene is. The growth and progress of friendship and a mutual respect for what you're creating. Most importantly, it's a shared investment in seeing what you do next and perhaps looking back to see how far you've come. Whether that's new books, new art, new shows, or perhaps even running shows yourself. All of it is spectacular, and all of it energizes me. I want to thank Kyrun Silva of Taurus Comics for sitting down with me to share his insights on running an event, and of course running a table. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for listening to Con Artists, a podcast about two independent comickers doing their best to make a buck.